Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Illumineers Quest podcast where we talk everything Lorcana. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for coming on this journey with us. Okay, so this week is a fun one, I think, as well. I mean, I feel like we say that every time, but we kind of jumped into this. So quickly, multiplayer. We had a fun multiplayer night, and we were all stunned at how fun it was.
I mean, little spoiler hint for later in the episode, this is the most fun I've had playing Lorcana.
I think it might be for mine too. I mean, there's definitely the competitive side that you get with Lorcana and playing one-on-one and, trying to build a really competitive deck and everything. This was just like the ultimate party game. Like, it was a blast.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's what we're talking about as the main go for this episode, and it'll be really fun. If you haven't considered playing multiplayer yet, rope some friends in and do it because it was a fantastic time. So, as everyone knows, this is Illumineers Quest. You can find us on YouTube as well for any of the videos or unboxings we do, on Twitter at LorcanaPod. You can also email us at lorcanapod@gmail.com if you have any questions or want us to address anything on a future episode. And then, obviously, the podcast is available on all major podcast networks. So, kicking it off here, comment from a listener. We have a question on the clarification of dinner bell from Twitter, so thank you, Vicky. We kind of touched on this already, but just to make sure you hear it, we'll go over it again real quick. So we did have a mix-up when we were talking about Dinner Bell and the release of the second set, which is in Rise of the Floodborn. So you can use it on your cards, not your opponent's cards.
Yep.
But that being said, we still both feel it's super, super powerful.
Yeah, and mostly that's because if you have a card that's already done its job, like a Maui or something.
Zeus is my favorite example.
Zeus of that nature, you can use Dinner Bell on that, and you're gonna get your money's worth, basically.
Yeah, I think especially for Ruby right now that doesn't have any card draw, I think that hinders the pairs that you can pair the ink with. And having, Amethyst Ruby is one of the most powerful ones because, Amethyst gives you the card draw. Ruby gives you a lot of the powerful characters with Aladdin Heroic Outlaw and Mickey Brave Little Tailor and Dragonfire and so forth. And so I think that's a big hurdle that if you have card draw within Ruby, then that can allow you to get creative in the ways that you play with it.
And we haven't seen any of the big Ruby Floodborns yet, so they could even work into the card draw. So who knows what the potential is for Chapter 2 for Ruby.
Yeah, so again, really quick, it's an item, so it stays on the board. You can use it to remove damage from your character, and when that damage is removed, you draw cards for those damage, and then your character is banished. So you draw on your cards only, not your opponent's.
And your the bad side of that would be it's being banished, but you're getting the draw out of it.
Yeah, so. If you play it right, again, like if you play it into the character that has already used its value, then it's probably a very good trade in your favor. So yeah, just wanted to clear that up again. Thanks for the question on Twitter, Vicky, and yeah, we'll if you have any other questions in the future like that, please reach out and we can address in a future episode. So, card of the week, card of the day.
I'm gonna go with Be Prepared. There's a few reasons for this.
Because I used too many bad Be Prepared puns.
That. And we played a game last night, and I needed it, and I didn't have it, so it's on the mind. Be Prepared. We'll go into it real quick. When it's a 7 cost, is uninkable, I think.
It is uninkable.
It's a song, and instantly banishes all cards on the board.
So your characters and the opponents, but
or all characters.
All characters,
not all cards.
Yeah, so items stay on the board, but it's a get out of jail free card, essentially. Like if you're in a really bad spot and there's just no way out, that just kind of resets it. So you're still behind in the lore rapes potentially, but like if you have to, stall for a turn and there's no other way to do it, it's a fantastic way to like reset it, shift the momentum in your favor potentially, and then go from there. So
I've also seen in a game where someone used Whole New World and Be Prepared at the same time, and it just whole new game, basically whole new world.
Pretty much, yeah.
It was incredible, but
that is insane.
But no, I just think it saves you games constantly if you have this in your deck and you can consistently pull it every game, it's going to win you games.
If you're playing a mid-range, late-game control, or like an ink ramp where you have to like build up to your heavy hitters and your opponent's an aggro, this is a must. Because otherwise they're just going to run away with it.
One of the biggest, like, I think this is a counter to is Emerald, because you've got Cheshire, Hatter, Flynn, Hans, just all that lore out there, and they probably in those lower costs, so they can throw them out there.
And they're very annoying to take off the board.
Yes, and this just banishes all of them instantly, and you're not challenging them, so their effects don't all get activated. There's some that still get activated, but not all of them.
Yeah, so it's all pretty. It's a good one. I mean, like we said, it's a must. It's an incredibly powerful card. Probably top 3 for sure. Action in the game.
If there was a legendary song, I think this would be it.
Oh, for sure. For sure. That's a very good way to put it. Okay, be prepared. That's straightforward. I mean, I think most people that have played are relatively familiar with it now. If you haven't, become familiar with Be Prepared.
Yes, definitely.
Especially if you're playing Ruby. But even if you're not, understanding your opponents and knowing that might come will definitely help you out too. Okay, I feel like this is a weekly thing now, but getting into kind of the what's on our mind from the past week is more Chapter 2 releases.
I mean, there's some like generic ones. Like, I think there was like the Flynn, which is a vanilla. It's basically the same as Mini
Olaf
and Olaf, but in green.
Yeah.
And Emerald.
Yeah.
Exact same.
One cost inkable, 1 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 1. So super vanilla. I was kind of salty about it because I like the Flynn that's already out there is incredibly powerful, and so it's kind of like a regress. But I get like maybe they're filling them out, and maybe there's another one coming.
There could be gearing up for this. Could be a shift.
It could
for
be.
a Floodborn.
It could be.
So they could be gearing up for something like that.
So trying not to draw too many conclusions, but yes, I agree. So that was the first one that came out since we released the first preview on Chapter 2 was Pooh, the I'm Stuck action. And so this was a fun one. It says chosen exerted character can't start at their next turn. So it's kind of a like freeze / Elsa exert from the current Amethyst set. Mm-hmm. And it is an Amethyst color or Amethyst card that costs 1 to play. So it's just another way to like, put some dynamic into the gameplay that can keep your opponent from reaching the finish or keep them exerted so that you can challenge them if you want to get them off the board or keep them from questing or whatever the case might be. But it's a pretty just a different another way to do that. Was
it 1 cost?
1 cost, yeah.
Wow, that's good value.
Yeah,
good value.
I think so. But getting into the 4 that we got most recently, mm-hmm. The first, so going into the action, since we're talking action, is Bounce, which I think is going to be really, really cool. Really cool.
Annoying in combos too.
And we talked about that last night in some of the combos. So Bounce is a 2 cost uninkable card in Emerald. And what it says is return chosen character of yours to player's hand and return another chosen character to your opponent's hand.
Yes.
So basically you each have 1 card go back to your hand. But the dynamic there is you could either have a very like small, like late in the game, you could play like a 1 cost card just so that you could return it back to your hand with Bounce, and then they get a really powerful one off the board on their side. But the scenario that we went through last night, because I really annoyed you with the Genie plays to begin with, was imagine playing Genie, which is an Emerald card that has evasive ability, but also has the ability that when he's played, you may return chosen character to the player's hand.
Genie on the job.
Yeah, Genie on the job. So imagine you play him, and you return a card to their player's hand, and then you play Bounce, and return Genie to your hand, and then return another of your opponent's card to their hand, and then play Genie again. So you've returned 3 cards to their character's hand. And Genie is a good quester. He has evasive, and so he's good to keep on the board. Mm-hmm. But again, like if you're in a pinch, or if they have a couple powerful cards out there, like you can wipe the board clean with 100%. 1 action, and it's a 2 cost card. So I think I just like the concept of being able to like really manipulate the board and frustrate your opponent by not being able to get anything on the board. So I think that's a really fun one. And then next, before we get to the big ones, are the Prince, Never Give Up. It's a 3 cost steel card. that has 1 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 2. He has 2 abilities. So first one is bodyguard, pretty straightforward there. So another bodyguard and steel to go along with Hercules and a couple of the musketeers. And then resist +1. So damage reduced on this character +1. So he's got 3 willpower, but he's got resist, and so that makes him a pretty strong bodyguard because you got to hit him for 2 or 3.
At 3 costs with 2 lore, it's a
pretty strong card.
Pretty strong.
I would definitely pick him over Hercules, because the bodyguard's, job is to get on there and protect the important cards, but he becomes a relatively important card with the 2 lore. And so, yeah, I think he can stay on the board longer with the resist. He can quest for 2 if, you're able to take out the opponent and they don't have anything on the board. And so, yeah, I think that's a really good one. And I think, given the strong, challenging characters that you have in Steel with Captain Hook and Prince Eric and a couple of the other bigger cards, like, he's a perfect, mid-time play in there.
He works in there.
He works well with those, for sure. Okay, getting into the exciting ones now. There's 2 more, both Cogsworth, both Sapphire. There's a 2-cost Cogsworth, Talking Clock, that is 2 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 1. But his ability is very different and very cool. So his ability is wait a minute, and it says your characters with Reckless gain exert for 1 lore. So your Reckless characters gain the ability to actually quest.
That is so... So, there's a few things. My initial thought going in was like, but why would Reckless characters ever quest? That's like my initial... I don't think they would ever need to quest.
I agree.
And then my second thought was like, okay, but I could see a lot of situations where that would make sense, where they already did basically their 1 attack. They've got 2 or 1 health left, maybe. They have more attack in them, maybe.
I think that Maui's the first one that comes to my mind, or the Ruby cards, and I guess you could throw in Gaston with it, but Maui specifically, if he goes in, he's probably taking out whatever target he has, and then from there you also stay on the board. Maybe he clears the board, and so there's not another target for him to take. But if he doesn't get taken out when he does that, he's then a massive target to leave on the board, and so even if he does quest, that's a big red flag to keep on the board for your opponent, and so maybe they will be inclined to try to take him out versus just leaving him on the board. And so it's just a big deterrent to keep out there, and so I think it just gives you another dynamic for those cards.
That's the thing is if they ever want to stop them from questing, those cards are going to be banished, no matter what, basically. With all the high strength that those cards have, they're going to be banished if they attack it. So
yeah, for sure. And then with the Cogsworth on the board, it's well, maybe he's the target then, and Maui / Gaston / whoever your Reckless character is doesn't get targeted, so that they can do more damage. Yeah. So it could be a little bit of a decoy play there. But I think that's a really cool concept. I think it again gives more dynamic to cards that might be pretty straightforward right now, but enables them to do really cool things.
But I don't even think the big use of that Cogsworth card is its ability or anything.
It might not be. So there is currently a Cogsworth in Sapphire, but we're adding 2 more. Or am I thinking of the I'm thinking of the item. It's Baroque, aren't I?
The action?
Yeah, yep. The action in Sapphire. So we're getting the Cogsworth card. So my mistake. Thank you for keeping me honest. But the big Cogsworth, so the second Cogsworth that I mentioned is a 5-cost Cogsworth Grandfather Clock. Incredible artwork. Have to just throw that one out there.
Floodborn, let's go.
But he is a Floodborn. He has 2 strength, 5 willpower, shift for 3. And before I go any further, he's basically a better Aurora. That's what it is. He's a much better Aurora.
So I know you keep saying that, but imagine the both of them working together.
I know, and I've done that before where I've played 2 Auroras and they're protecting each other, and so you can do that with these 2. But, so Cogsworth, he has 2 abilities. He has Ward, just like Aurora and Sapphire, where you can't... or your opponents can't challenge him or banish him. But then he also gives you resist +1 to the rest of the characters. So my first thought, of course, is Imagine playing Sapphire Steel and having the big Cinderella that had been leaked already, or had already been shown off already. That is the behemoth, the Cinderella South-Hearted that has resist +2 already, has 5 willpower. So a resist +3, you have to do 4 damage to even begin to touch her. Then if she's got resist +3.
Yep.
So it's just yes. So you're right. The Aurora plus the Cogsworth giving everybody ward, giving everybody resist +1 might possibly be the most annoying thing to deal with, and you better be prepared, which we just talked about, to clear that board, because it will be incredibly annoying to take anyone out.
And I don't remember seeing this, but what is the rarity on Grandfather Clock?
He is a super rare.
So these are both, they're not legendary, so they're going to be more common. Aurora and Cogsworth and Grandfather Clock.
And Aurora's in the starter deck.
Aurora's in the starter deck, so you have ways. We don't know where this one's going to pop up. Could be in a starter deck. We don't know 100% yet, but
with 5, just both Aurora and Cogsworth have 5 willpower with resist +1, basically gives them 6, and it's going to be incredibly hard to clear that board because you have to attack into them because you're going to have an entire board full of ward, so you can't do anything unless you're doing grab your sword, but that grab your sword only does 1 then.
Yeah.
You can't smash it because everything has ward. So be prepared is honestly the only answer I have right now.
Yeah, and you're gonna need what we were saying with the prince. You're gonna need those bodyguards to protect this, which you have in steel. Which I think this is gonna work with Sapphire Steel is gonna work great.
Yep.
So I think you're gonna need those bodyguards to protect it, and it's gonna be
and the ink ramp of Sapphire to get to the 5, 6, 7, 8 ink cost cards quickly.
And this shifts for 3, so it's gonna be out there
and
early.
And it shifts for 3, so you could do that, and so on turn 4 or 5 or 6, you could have a Cogsworth shifted and Aurora shifted, and since you can ink multiple times in Sapphire with some of the abilities in Grammatala and such, you could end up with 7 ink, and in the Cinderella shifts too, and so you're talking Cogsworth, Aurora, Cinderella, just game over.
and what's even more broken is if you have 4 of these, you play 2 of them, resist +2. To your entire board.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That would be resist +4 on Cinderella.
Possibilities are endless with this. It could be ridiculous.
So I'm really excited about that one. I was a big Sapphire proponent from the beginning. I think, again, currently it's limited to its partners because it doesn't have any card draw. Mm-hmm. So you have to really do it. And so I'm excited to see where this one goes. I think we're both just hyped for the stuff we're seeing. I think it's going to add a lot of new dynamics to the way that you can play the game, and it'll make it fun.
100%. It's adding a lot of excitement to the game.
Yep. Okay. Any final thoughts on that before we move into the main topic?
No, I think we covered all of it.
Okay. Main topic, multiplayer.
This was incredible.
So we were all kind of hesitant to do this, I would say, just because we were like,
this isn't the way you play,
Yeah, we're just... again, we're new to the TCG space, but we're just so even ingrained in the 1v1 because that's just what it's always been. But I will say, it is extremely cutthroat, it is extremely political, and it is extremely fun. So and let me just clarify what I mean. So it's extremely cutthroat because alliances form very fast. It's extremely political because alliances form very fast, and it's extremely fun because there's so many more dynamics outside the cards itself. Yeah. You I don't know, give me your best memory of the night, and then I'll
part of what was going on was basically I would form with someone, and then they would be getting really good. I'd form an alliance with them, then they'd be probably in the lead, so I'd take them out, and the alliance was broken, then everyone turns on me, so then I try to help everyone out by taking out the biggest threats by using all my things. So then everyone likes me, but then I'm really bad at where I'm really, really in a bad spot, and so...
Is that scenario you played out the one where you backstabbed me? Can we get a little more specific about that?
I backstabbed you and Dad, so...
So, to clarify this exact example that he just laid out, it was so much fun. So there were 4 of us playing, and so there was a board of 4 that we were going in order with. And I don't remember the exact cards that were on the board, but the person that came before him and after me, so we were like on opposite sides. So like he went first, I went third, and then just like the rotation of turns. I was like, are you going to be able to take this out next turn so that I can do X, Y, or Z to, help out with somebody else? He promised me yes, he would do it. And so I made a different move to take a card off the board, given the information that I had just been given. Guess what happens when it comes around to good old buddy over here? He does not do what he said he would do, completely backstabs me, and goes a different direction for his own game. And so at that point, alliance broken. I'm all for myself.
To clarify, I did not promise. I just said I would do it. I didn't promise. But...
Okay, so we're getting into semantics here?
I'm just saying, promise. If you were to ask me to promise, I would. I promise is a big deal for me.
That's good to know then for future games. I'm going to say, pinky promise that you're not going to backstab me because we have to keep the alliance going. But we played 3 matches, 3 different. So there were 4 of us playing. 3 different people won the 3 matches we played, and so it was just super fun. I mean, the cards that are strong too. Like none of us had decks built for multiplayer.
We had our regular best decks.
Yeah. But after we had played probably 1 or it might have been 2 games, we were like, okay, we got to build multiplayer decks.
I did maybe buy a few singles that were specifically for multiplayer.
So
maybe I didn't.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll get in a little bit here, like what we think could be some of the best multiplayer deck / strategies. But it was so much fun because you could attack multiple people and you could kind of gang up, like if necessary. On a normal circumstance, if your opponent's at like 17 or 18 lore, maybe even like 15 or 16 if they have a couple cards on the board. If you don't have a way to like clear that off your next turn, then you kind of are just, gonna lose at that point. But now you have 3 people that can help pile on. So like, let's say player 1 has 4 cards on the board and all of them need to be taken off for the person to lose next turn. Well, there's 3 people that can gang up and take all those 4 cards off. Or maybe you have a Be Prepared or a Dragonfire or something that can just like target those characters and then just poof, they're gone and you keep going. And it's so much fun because you can be at the finish line and completely get stalled out because there's so many people that can do stuff to you.
Yeah, and I mean, there's strategy. You could be like, okay, I know my opponent will take out that, or like I know my opponent will take out that card, so I'm going to take out this one, but also leave my other card to quest because I don't need to use it that turn to take out this one because they'll take it out. And so many different strategies.
I don't know. We kind of made the joke on, are we supposed to talk on our turns? Because we were wheeling and dealing the whole time.
The whole time.
So that's what I mean by political, is we were forming the alliances, we were wheeling and dealing. And so like, if, player 1 goes, we now have, and it's like, I don't know, giant Tinkerbell or something crazy that's hard to take out. You have 3 turns then to deal with it. And so before the next person's turn, it's like, okay, guys, how are we going to deal with this? And we all just like collectively decide what we're going to do about this big card. And so it's fun because you have that interaction, you have the laughs and the jokes of like figuring out what to do. And so it's just, it was a fantastic time.
If you've got people that are a little bit more serious about it, then I don't think the fun factor would necessarily be there, but you got to loosen up a bit.
Yeah, it's not a competitive
at all. Not at all. It is purely for the fun of it, and it is a lot of fun.
And the reason it's not that competitive is because if you're trying to play a political game and you do it wrong and you have 3 people against you, there's nothing you can do to win because it literally could be 3v1 at that point. So like the second game we played was the one that we talked about where you quote backstabbed me. And then towards the end of that game, I basically, when it was my turn, had a choice of, do I want one of these 2 people to win? Because someone was going to win their next turn given the cards on the board and what I could do to stop them. And so it was, okay, which one of these people do I want to stop from winning? And so since you had backstabbed me 7 turns earlier, I chose other player to win.
Yes.
And so it's just, it's not competitive because, you kind of, sometimes the fate is out of your hands. A lot of times when you're playing 1v1, you can really, form your own path and really have the control of the game in your hands. And obviously, you might lose, but all of that is between you and the other person. Whereas now there's so many other variables that just make it so much more fun.
I mean, and there was, like, I had a few cards that really like just so happened to work out. Like I had the 2-cost, 3-cost Aladdin that steals one lore from each opponent.
Yeah.
So that was like, I just had that in my deck for. I didn't even have Heroic Outlaw in my deck, so I just had that one to steal lore usually.
We should talk about the 1/3s like the Flens we mentioned. So like the minis and the Olafs.
Yes.
Those were so annoying. And those might have been the best cards because
they were sleepers.
Yeah, for sure, a big sleeper because most cheap cards will do 1 to 2 damage. I mean, you have some of the challenging cards that can challenge for +2, and so you get to 3 or 4 potentially. But the mini with 3 health, and it only quests for 1, but it can't be taken out in 1 turn, so nobody wanted to take the initiative to do that first damage when you could either take another card out. It's like, is there another option that's more impactful to take out because I can just either challenge it right away and be done with it, or should I just quest myself? And so the little bit extra health kind of just didn't make it a complete sleeper.
My dad's mini quested for 7.
Yeah, he kept track because he was like, he got it on the board early and nobody took it out, and he was just like, guys, I quested this for 7 this game. And so it was just one of those where you don't see it coming and it bites you in the butt. And
because there's so many other bigger things on the board at that point. It's like, okay, no one needs to worry about this mini.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just your opponent has 4 other cards. It's opponent A has 2 other cards that are more important. Opponent B has another card that's more important. Opponent C has 2 cards, one of them being, I don't know,
Cusco.
Yeah, Cusco or something crazy. So it's just it was so much fun. And so I was playing my normal deck that I've been playing on League, which is Emerald Steel. I think it benefited me a lot in some ways. I think Emerald is really fun to play in this because they have a lot of big questers, and you have the Flynn Rider that makes your opponent that banishes them discard a card. You have Cheshire, which automatically banishes a challenging character if they're banished. You have Cusco that you can't really do anything to directly. You have Jasper, which can slow down one of your opponents. And so what I think benefited me by playing Emerald was that people just didn't want to challenge me and was hoping that somebody else would challenge me because they didn't want to have to deal with the repercussions of challenging those cards.
So I would say one of the biggest cards for me was Dragonfire. Because there could be a problem waiting in the wings, drying ink that everyone's worried about, and like, guys, I got it, Dragonfire.
Because there's 3 people that could have played cards that turn. It's not just like 1 card to Dragonfire. It could have been like 3 people, and so it's hard to get ink to dry sometimes on those big cards because you can, like, if 2 people are playing Dragonfire, there's potentially 8 Dragonfires at any given time to be played.
Yep.
So Dragonfire was a good one. I played Steel, another one played Steel, and so I think that was really annoying to deal with because there was just so much damage going out left and right. Yeah. So that's really grab your swords all over the place.
Yes, it was insane.
So I guess we can kind of start to get into some of the strategy that we think would be like really good if you want to build a deck specifically for this. But obviously, any card that does damage across the board versus directly is going to be insane. So the best example is grab your sword. Normally if you're playing 1 opponent and you can deal damage to 3 or 4 cards, that's super powerful. But imagine you're playing 3 opponents and you damage 7 cards across 3 people. That's insane.
And to even grab your sword card of the day, be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared.
None of us had it, but we were like, could you imagine at this point if it got played and
just wipes the board clean.
There could be so many threats on the board from each opponent. Each player could have
I want to have a be prepared multiplayer deck so bad because I can just picture everyone's reaction to me going dun 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 dun. Be prepared, and everybody has to wipe the board. It would be just hysterical. It would be so fun.
I mean, there's a lot of cards that you think you read them at first and it's like, okay, this could be kind of good for single player. My opponent, that beats them. And then there's, in multiplayer, it's just that is OP. It's so overpowered. And I mean, Heroic Outlaw is already one of the best cards in the game.
It might be the best card in multiplayer.
It's insane. I mean, the text that is key here is when it challenges and is it defeat, right?
Each opponent, yeah, when you defeat your opponent, each opponent loses 2 lore.
And you gain 2. That
each opponent
so loses 2
all
lore.
3. And then again, like a card like Tangle, that's basically just says each opponent loses 1 lore. I've played that a couple times head on. But if you have that in your deck, you just want to like get a good laugh and make everybody lose the lore, you just play it and say haha and move on. Like, so anything that can do that, and then you think of like Ursula and Amethyst. That's,
yes.
you know, again, a really strong head-to-head player because she's got so much health. But again, each opponent loses 1 lore when she comes into the game. And so, you know, anything that you have the ability to attack all the opponents at one time is strong like that. I will say, though, as just a small tangent before we get back to some of this, is you don't always want to put a big target on your back.
No, I learned that the hard way. You kind of want to maybe play to everyone's liking for the first bit.
Which, again, I think kind of helped me with Emerald because those cards were annoying, but they're just, you know, on the surface kind of just normal cards. But
you snuck up a few times, and the one you won, you snuck up. And we're playing everyone's game and gave it to everyone your side, so we were taking out everyone else, and then you just popped out these cards, and there's nothing we could do about it. Yeah, so, I mean, anything like that, you know, can affect all of the board. I mean, you have the Rapunzel in Ruby as well, that when you play this character, each opponent loses 1 lore. Which is essentially, in one-on-one, an unplayable card, I would say. Like, there's just so many better options. Yes, and it becomes a really good card in multiplayer. Yeah, so there's so many other things. So I think we have a little bit of competing theories at what the best deck might be. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of I still don't have it fully fleshed out. Like I said, I haven't built a multiplayer deck yet, but I've thought about it quite a bit. I think like a Ruby. I think Ruby's the baseline because you have both Aladdins that make your opponents lose lore. We just talked about Rapunzel. We just talked about Tangle. Dragonfire, Be Prepared. Like, a lot of those are super powerful cards regardless. But then I think it goes in between somewhere on the steel side is kind of where I've leaned, and the reason of that being Big Tink and A Whole New World / Grab Your Swords. So again, you have a lot of stuff that can affect everybody, and so A Whole New World makes everybody draw 7 more cards, which would just, again, be fun. Because it's like, everybody draws 7 more cards. Don't care if you like your cards or not. Get rid of them. Yeah. And then Grab Your Swords is obviously super powerful, and Giant Tink again does damage to everybody. And so it's just, you know, you have the ability to affect everyone in so many different ways, and you have the opportunity to replenish your hand with A Whole New World. So that's kind of my inkling. I haven't fully fleshed it out yet. I know you have a little different thoughts. So where's your head at? Well, definitely Ruby. I think, like you said before, it is the mainstay, I think, for multiplayer. I think everyone except for one player was... Or no, you weren't
I wasn't. No, there were 2 Rubies. But I think we all agreed that Ruby was a mainstay. And then I'm Ruby Amethyst. You know me. That's of course what I play in everything. But that Ursula, if you're drawing cards for your opponent's losing lore... I mean, if you're playing a game like we did... So that would be each opponent loses 1 lore. That would be 3 people. Yep. So you're drawing 3 cards. Yep. And I think she quests for 3. She's a huge tank. I think the common theme between our styles is that you get to a really strong late game. You know, you're not going to have an aggro person that just runs to the finish line and beats everybody up in multiplayer. I mean, maybe with 3 players it would be a little different, but with 4, you know, like if you're playing a super aggro deck and let's say on turn 3 you play 3 1-cost cards, you know, there's 3 other people that can deal with that. Yeah. And so even if you quest for 3 and so you're up to like, say 4, 5, maybe 6 lore, it doesn't matter. Like your whole board's wiped. Like there's no way to keep those cards on the board because there's just too many other threats out there. And so you have to have a really good, I think, card draw to keep your hand coming so that you can keep inking and get to this powerful stuff. But you also have to have a way to really deal with problems. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing with the Amethyst is you're consistently card drawing with so many cards in Amethyst. And so you're getting to your Maleficents, your Brave Little Tailors, your Be Prepareds. Your Elsas with Amethyst. I mean, you're
in a pretty good shape at that point.
I agree. I think Amethyst is Amethyst is strong in everything. I mean, Amethyst is just a top tier ink right now. I really struggled with the Steel and Amethyst, and I kind of went Steel just because I didn't want to agree with you, and I wanted to, have competing ideas, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, I don't think you could go wrong either way. I think both of them have the ability to really set yourself up for success.
They both have their advantages. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it, and then I guess the last thing I want to say, and I've kind of touched on this already a little bit, is. Man, I played a political game. I was trying to make alliances with everybody. I was trying to make everybody else's problems seem bigger. I was the first person to say when somebody had more lore than I did that they needed to be the ones that were taken out so that I wasn't the main target. And I think so. I won the first game we played, and I think it probably had a lot to do with that. I think by the second,
we never let you win again.
I think by the second and third, I got close to the third one. But I think by the second and third one, everybody knew my tricks, and it was very apparent to be, I would say, very, upfront with grabbing your own information. So not relying on me to tell you what to do, but just making your own assumption or making your own decisions and not taking it from me because I formed my alliances and was very much a loudspeaker for what needed to happen, and usually people listen to me the first round, not so much the second and third.
No, we did not. We caught on to your game.
But again, like that just gives you a whole new dynamic. Like it makes it so much like if you have good friends that you're playing with, it makes it so much more fun because you're not just playing the cards, you're playing with your opponents and trying to convince them to do things that you want them to do when they're trying to win their own game, obviously. So it was just, yeah. I mean, I'm smiling ear to ear just because it would like those memories are so good. It was so much fun.
We had someone that we did not know was happening at the time, but someone was recording us playing, and they have audio and footage of us playing, and it is some of the funniest. It is hilarious.
I think we played until like 10:30 that night too. Like we started playing at 12, like noon, and we played 1-on-1 for probably 4 or 5 hours. There was a couple of us, and so we would switch off playing each other and doing whatever. And then like after dinner, we was like, let's play multiplayer and kind of like wrap it up or whatever. And had it's been a fun day, whatever. We played one, and we were like, holy moly, we gotta go again. And we played another one, and we were like, holy moly, we gotta go again. And so we played forever that day because it was just so much fun once we got to the multiplayer.
It was such a good time.
Until all of us were just like dead tired and had to pack it in because
you used a lot of energy.
We were standing up and pointing and
yelling.
Yeah, and yelling and trying to convince people to go on the path that would allow us to win versus our opponents. So you definitely have to. I think the majority of the experience came from those conversations. I think if you were to just sit down at a table and just play your cards and like play with your opponents, I think it would be stale and you probably wouldn't have as much fun because the chances of you winning are very low. And so I don't think it would be as enjoyous of an experience. But if you just enjoy it, use it as a social game and have fun with your friends, like I would be shocked if anybody plays that and has a bad time.
Yeah. Unless
somebody has like a really bad attitude about it, one of your opponents, and that makes it not fun. I can't think of another reason why you wouldn't have fun.
You can't be. I know there's some like people that might have a hard time. They're maybe a little sensitive with people ganging up on them.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to understand what you're getting into, and just have fun.
That's the number one
thing.
thing.
And not take it too seriously because I'm really like super competitive normally, but this was just a party game, and so we were just having fun, and so I didn't take it too seriously. And so it was. I could not stop saying how much fun it was and beg people to try this because you won't regret it.
No, it is. Again, I'll say it again. The funnest time I've had playing Lorcana.
It basically makes it a new game. Like it extends the life of the usability of the game that you have. We're all making these investments and buying these cards and playing the game, and not to say you get burned out playing 1-on-1, but it makes it to where like if you're having a party or you're having a couple friends over, you don't necessarily want to play one-on-one, because not everybody can be involved. It's like, well, everybody come on, let's just play and do it all together. And
I don't think there's a max either.
I don't. We talked about that. I think they might say 4, they might not. Regardless, there's not like a limitation. Sometimes like Monopoly, for instance, like you can't play Monopoly with 10 people. Yeah. There's just not enough properties. There's just this small space to live in within the board and all the stuff you can do. If you want to play Lorcana with 10 people, it might take 4 hours to finish a game yes. because everybody would be attacking everybody. But I promise you would have a grand time doing it. Yep. And if you're playing with 10 people, you probably have to have a deck of like 100 cards. Yeah. because you would just be drawing for days having everybody attack your stuff. And so I would say the sweet spot would probably be 4 or 5. I think 5 would still be really fun. 3 would still be great too, but I think adding that extra person in there just makes it a little bit longer to get back to you. And so it makes it a little easier to form alliances for your other opponents to help you defeat the really strong stuff. So 4 or 5 is probably the sweet spot. But yeah, I mean, if you want to play with 3 or 6, I don't think that would be an issue.
No, but I mean, if there's any takeaway from this episode is get with a group of buddies and play multiplayer.
Seriously, try it out. It was so much fun.
Cannot recommend it enough.
So much fun. Okay, I think that about wraps it up then. Is there any final thoughts you have or anything we missed?
No, I think the biggest thing is if you play multiplayer, it gives so many cards new life, I think. And that's
it does allow you to play cards that you normally wouldn't do. And so I really like that idea as well, and being able to, come up with a new strategy that's completely different than you would normally think of. So yeah, it just makes you think differently about the game, makes it more fun, gives you a different element. So all right. Well, again, if you play a multiplayer game, hit us up on Twitter or X or email us and let us know if you had fun or what you thought, or if you have any deck suggestions for multiplayer.
Please if you play multiplayer, let us know. I would love to hear your experience.
Yeah, I want to hear some stories too that we can share, because we had a great time and it was so much fun, and we want to hear other people's experiences too. So with that said, I think we'll see you next time then.
All right, see you guys.
All right, everyone. Thanks. Bye.